baby's cry pierced the night air for only a moment before the splash swallowed it whole. Mama Folek stood on the riverbank, her chest heaving, watching the tiny bundle disappear beneath the dark waters. The moon hung low and full, casting silver ripples across the surface where her husband's newborn daughter had just vanished. "It's done," she whispered to herself, brushing her trembling hands against her wrapper. "That child will never take what belongs to my sons." But as she turned to leave, the river began to glow. A soft, ethereal blue light emanated from deep below, growing brighter with each passing second. Mama Falaka froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The water started to churn and bubble, as if something ancient had awakened from a 1,000-year sleep. She should have run. She should have screamed. Instead, she stood paralyzed as a figure began to rise from the depths, a woman made of water and starlight, her eyes burning with the fury of a mother whose child had been harmed. The river goddess Oshun had been watching, and the baby Mama Folake had just thrown away was her granddaughter. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began, 3 years earlier, in the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria. Adebayo was a successful businessman, the kind of man who walked into rooms and commanded respect without saying a word. His clothing shop in Balogun Market was the most prosperous in the area, and his reputation for fairness and generosity made him beloved throughout the community. But beneath his success lay a deep, aching loneliness. His first wife, Yetunde, had died giving birth to their daughter, Amara, leaving him to raise the girl alone. For 3 years, Adebayo managed. He hired help, relied on his sister, and poured all his love into little Amara, who had her mother's gentle eyes and infectious laugh. But the whispers in the market grew louder. "A man needs a wife," the elders said. "A child needs a mother." And perhaps they were right, because Adebayo found himself noticing Folaka, the beautiful widow who sold fabrics 2 stalls down from his shop. Falak was stunning, with smooth dark skin and a smile that could melt the hardest heart. She had 2 sons from her previous marriage, Tunde, who was 7, and Bayo, who was 5. When Adebayo first approached her about marriage, she seemed hesitant, humble even. "I'm just a simple woman," she said, lowering her eyes. "I don't know if I could ever replace your beloved Yetunde." That humility sealed his decision. Within 6 months, they were married in a ceremony that had the whole market celebrating. Mama Folake, as everyone now called her, moved into Adebayo's spacious home in Surulere with her 2 boys. At first, everything seemed perfect. She cooked his favorite meals, kept the house spotless, and even appeared to dote on little Amara. But appearances, as Adebayo would learn too late, can be as deceptive as a snake hiding in tall grass. The change happened gradually, like poison spreading through water. It started with small things: Amara's favorite doll going missing, her clothes somehow ending up torn or stained. When Amara complained, Mama Falake would smile sweetly and say, "Oh, you must have been playing too rough, dear." Adebayo, busy with his expanding business, noticed nothing. Then came the food. Amara's portions grew smaller while Tunde and Bayo's plates overflowed. When the 4-year-old mentioned she was hungry, Mama Folak would snap, "Ungrateful child, there are children starving in the streets and you complain?" But only when Adebayo wasn't home. In his presence, she was the picture of maternal devotion. The breaking point came on a humid evening when Adebayo announced news that would change everything. He gathered the family in the living room, his face beaming with joy. "I have wonderful news," he said, pulling Mama Falak close. "We're going to have a baby." Mama Falak's smile didn't reach her eyes, but Adebayo was too excited to notice. That night, alone in her room, she made a decision. This new baby would threaten her son's inheritance. Adebayo's wealth would be divided further, and she couldn't allow that. She had married him for security, for her boy's future. This child had to be dealt with. 9 months later, on a night when Adebayo was away on a business trip to Abuja, Mama Falak went into labor. She refused to go to the hospital, claiming she wanted a traditional birth at home. The midwife arrived, and after hours of labor, a baby girl entered the world, tiny, perfect, and already marked by destiny in ways no one could see. The midwife placed the infant in Mama Folak's arms and smiled. "She's beautiful. Your husband will be so happy." Mama Folak stared at the baby, her jaw clenched. Another girl, Another threat. "Leave us," she told the midwife. "I need to rest." As soon as she was alone, Mama Falaki wrapped the newborn tightly in a cloth and slipped out into the night. She knew exactly where she was going, to the river at the edge of town, where the waters ran deep and secrets were swallowed whole. But what Mama Falak didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that the baby's biological grandmother wasn't human at all. Years ago, before Adebayo met Yetunde, the young woman had saved a drowning child from that very same river. In gratitude, the river goddess Oshun had blessed Yetunde, promising that her bloodline would always be protected by the waters. That blessing had passed to Amara, and now to this newborn child, whose cry had just been silenced by the river's embrace. Standing on that moonlit bank, watching the impossible light rise from the depths, Mama Falake finally understood the terrible mistake she had made. The water woman's eyes found hers, and in them, Mama Falake saw her own doom approaching like a tidal wave. What happens when you harm the child of a goddess? Mama Folake was about to find out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think the river goddess will do to Mama Folake? Comment below. Share this story with someone who loves African folktales with a twist. The river goddess Oshun didn't speak with words. She didn't need to. The water around Mama Folake's feet began to rise, cold and purposeful, wrapping around her ankles like chains. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The goddess glided across the surface of the river, still cradling the baby, who was now breathing softly, completely dry, as if she had never touched the water at all. "Please," Mama Folake finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Please, I didn't know. I didn't know she was—" The goddess raised one hand, and Mama Falak's words died in her throat. Oshun's form shimmered in the moonlight, sometimes appearing as solid as flesh, other times as translucent as morning mist. She looked down at the infant in her arms with such tenderness that it made Mama Falake's chest ache with shame. "You threw away a life as if it meant nothing," the goddess finally spoke, her voice like water flowing over ancient stones. "But this child is not yours to discard. She is blood of my blood, blessed and protected by powers you cannot comprehend." Mama Falak's mind raced back to the stories her grandmother used to tell, tales of river goddesses and the terrible price of crossing them. She had dismissed them as superstition, old wives' tales meant to scare children. Now, face to face with the impossible, she realized every story had been a warning she was too arrogant to heed. "What will you do to me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Oshun tilted her head, studying Mama Folake the way one might examine an insect. "Death would be too simple, too quick. No, you will live. You will return home and tell your husband that your daughter died at birth. You will raise your sons and the child you tried to murder. Yes, she will return to you, though not in the way you expect. And every day, you will remember this moment. Every night, you will hear the splash of water and wonder when I will come for what you owe." The water released Mama Folake's ankles, and she collapsed onto the muddy bank. When she looked up again, the goddess was gone, and so was the baby. The river flowed peacefully as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But Mama Falake knew better. Her hands shook as she pulled herself to her feet and stumbled back toward home. She didn't sleep that night. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those luminescent eyes boring into her soul. By morning, when Adebayo called from Abuja, she had her story ready. "The baby didn't make it," she sobbed into the phone, her tears real despite the lie. "She was too small, too weak. She took only a few breaths, and then she was gone." Adebayo's anguished cry through the phone made her flinch. "I'm coming home right now. Don't move her. I want to see my daughter. I want to bury her properly." Panic seized Mama Folake. "No! I mean, the midwife already took her. It's our custom, you know. When a baby dies so quickly, we must bury them before sunrise, or their spirit becomes restless. It's already done, my husband. I'm so sorry." It was a flimsy lie, full of holes, but grief makes people accept things they normally wouldn't. Adebayo returned home that evening, broken and hollow-eyed. He didn't question the absence of a body or a grave. He simply retreated into his sorrow, spending long hours at the mosque praying for the daughter he never got to hold. Mama Falaki watched him grieve and felt something she hadn't expected. Guilt. Real, gnawing guilt that kept her awake at night and turned her food to ash in her mouth. But alongside the guilt grew resentment. This was the goddess's fault, she told herself. If Oshun hadn't interfered, everything would have been simple. The baby would be gone, and life would continue as she planned. 3 days after the incident at the river, something strange happened. Adebayo came home from the market with a bundle in his arms and tears streaming down his face. "Folak!" he called out, his voice trembling with emotion. "Folak, come quickly!" She rushed to the living room, her heart pounding. Had he discovered her lie? But what she saw stopped her cold. In Adebayo's arms was a baby girl, perhaps a few days old, wrapped in the most beautiful blue cloth Mama Falak had ever seen. The fabric seemed to shimmer like water in sunlight. "I found her," Adebayo said, his voice full of wonder, "at the market, near the river entrance. She was just lying there in a basket, and when I picked her up, she opened her eyes and looked at me. And I swear, Folak, I swear it was like my daughter looking back at me. Like God heard my prayers and sent me another chance." Mama Folak's blood ran cold. She knew exactly what this was. The goddess had kept her promise. The baby had returned. "We can't just take a random child," she stammered, backing away. "Her parents might be looking for her. We should take her to the police." "I did," Adebayo said, his excitement undiminished. "I went straight to the police station. They said no one has reported a missing baby. They checked everywhere. It's like she appeared out of nowhere. They said if no one claims her in 30 days, we can adopt her legally." He looked down at the infant with such love that it made Mama Folak want to scream. "I'm going to name her Aomid. My joy has arrived." Because that's what she is, Folak. She's the joy that came after our sorrow. Mama Folak wanted to snatch the baby and run back to the river, to beg the goddess to take her back. But she couldn't. Not with Adebayo watching, not with her sons peeking curiously from behind the sofa, not with the neighbors already gathering outside, drawn by Adebayo's excited voice. That night, as Aomid slept in a hastily prepared crib in their bedroom, Mama Folak stood over her, staring at the peaceful infant face. In the darkness, she could have sworn the baby's eyes opened for just a moment, glowing with that same ethereal blue light she'd seen in the river. A warning, a reminder. "I'm watching you," those eyes seemed to say, "always watching." The 30 days passed. No one claimed the baby. The adoption was finalized, and Aomid officially became Aomid Adebayo. The neighborhood celebrated the miracle baby, the child who appeared exactly when a grieving father needed her most. Some called it divine intervention. Others whispered about the mysterious ways of fate. Only Mama Folake knew the truth. And that truth was slowly driving her mad. She tried to be cruel to Aomid the way she'd been to Amara, but she couldn't. Every time she raised her voice or hand to the child, water would appear, dripping from the ceiling, seeping through the walls, flooding from the kitchen sink. Once when she tried to withhold food from the baby, her own throat closed up, and she couldn't swallow for 3 days until she finally fed Aomid herself. The goddess was keeping her promise. Mama Falake would live, but she would never be free. As the months passed and Aomid grew from infant to toddler, strange things continued to happen around her. Plants flourished wherever she played. When she cried, it would rain, even if the sky had been clear moments before. And sometimes, late at night, Mama Falake would wake to find wet footprints leading from Aomid's room to her own bed. Footprints that glowed faintly blue before fading away. The message was clear. The river goddess was always near, always watching, always ready to protect her granddaughter. And Mama Falak's punishment was just beginning. What would you do if you were trapped in Mama Falake's situation? Comment below where you're watching from and let us know your thoughts. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. The goddess's revenge is far from over. 5 years passed, and the household settled into an uneasy rhythm. Aomid grew into a bright, curious child, with her father's kind eyes and a mysterious grace that made everyone who met her stop and stare. She was different from other children. Calmer, wiser somehow, as if she carried old secrets in her young soul. Water seemed to love her. Rain would pause when she walked outside, forming a protective dome over her head. Fish in the market would leap toward her as she passed. Even the well in their compound produced the sweetest, clearest water only when she was near. Adebayo doted on both his daughters equally, never suspecting that Mama Falak's treatment of them differed drastically when he wasn't looking. Amara, now 9 years old, had learned to stay quiet and invisible. She did her chores without complaint, accepted her smaller portions of food, and flinched whenever Mama Folak came near. But Iamide, 5-year-old Iamide, was untouchable. Mama Folak had learned that lesson the hard way. Every attempt to harm or neglect Iamide resulted in immediate consequences. The time she tried to serve Iamide's spoiled food, her own stomach cramped so violently she couldn't leave the bathroom for 2 days. When she locked Iamide in a dark storage room, water filled the space instantly, and the child emerged completely dry while Mama Folak's bedroom flooded, ruining all her expensive clothes and jewelry. The goddess's protection was absolute, and Mama Folak's resentment grew like a cancer. "Mama Folak, can I have some water?" Iamide's small voice broke through her bitter thoughts one afternoon. The child stood in the kitchen doorway, her school uniform dusty from playing outside. "Get it yourself," Mama Folak snapped, not looking up from the vegetables she was cutting. "You have hands, don't you?" Iamide walked to the clay pot they kept in the corner and dipped her cup in. As she drank, Mama Falak watched from the corner of her eye, waiting for something to go wrong, for the goddess to punish her harsh words. But nothing happened. Maybe the goddess was finally losing interest. Maybe after 5 years, the protection was weakening. That dangerous thought took root in Mama Folak's mind. "Where's Amara?" Iamide asked, setting down her cup. "How should I know? Probably hiding somewhere. Being useless as always," Mama Folak muttered. She saw Iamide's face fall and felt a twisted satisfaction. At least she could still make someone in this house unhappy. But Iamide surprised her. Instead of running away or crying, the 5-year-old straightened her shoulders and said quietly, "Amara is not useless. She's kind and smart, and she helps me with my homework. You shouldn't say mean things about her." Mama Falak's knife froze mid-chop. Had this child just corrected her? This baby she'd tried to drown, who should have been dead 5 years ago, was standing in her kitchen speaking to her like an equal? "What did you say to me?" Mama Folak's voice was dangerously low. Iamide didn't back down. Her eyes, those strange, deep eyes that sometimes seemed to reflect light that wasn't there, met Mama Folak steadily. "I said you shouldn't be mean to Amara, or to anyone. My grandmother says people who are cruel to others are just sad inside." "Your grandmother?" Mama Falak's heart started racing. "What grandmother? Your parents are dead. That's why you were abandoned." "No," Iamide said simply. "My grandmother visits me sometimes. She comes from the river. She's very beautiful, and she loves me very much." The knife clattered from Mama Falak's hand onto the cutting board. The room suddenly felt colder, and she could swear she heard the sound of water dripping, though all the taps were closed. "You're lying," Mama Falaki whispered, but her voice shook. "Children make up imaginary friends all the time. There's no grandmother." Iamide tilted her head, studying Mama Falak with an expression far too knowing for a 5-year-old. "She's not imaginary, and she told me something interesting. She said you know her too. She said you met her on the night I was born." The world tilted. Mama Falake gripped the counter to keep from falling. "Get out," she hissed. "Get out of my kitchen right now." Iamide nodded and turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. "She also said to tell you that debts always come due. I don't know what that means, but she made me promise to tell you." After the child left, Mama Falake collapsed into a chair, her whole body trembling. For 5 years, she'd told herself that maybe she'd imagined the goddess, that maybe it had been a fever dream brought on by guilt and exhaustion. But Iamide's words shattered that delusion. The goddess was still there, still watching, still waiting, and she was communicating with the child. That night, Mama Folake couldn't eat dinner. She pushed her food around her plate while Adebayo chatted happily about expanding his business to Abuja. Her sons Tunde and Bayo, now 12 and 10, argued good-naturedly about football. Amara ate silently as always, while Ayomide hummed a strange, haunting melody that made the hair on Mama Folake's arms stand up. "Where did you learn that song?" Adebayo asked Ayomide, smiling at his youngest daughter. "My grandmother taught me," Ayomide said innocently. "She says it's very old, from when the world was young and the rivers first learned to speak." Adebayo laughed. "What an imagination you have. Maybe you'll be a storyteller when you grow up." Mama Folake excused herself and went to her room, claiming a headache. She lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, when she heard it. Footsteps in the hallway, wet and deliberate. They stopped outside her door. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched water seep under the doorframe, spreading across her floor in impossible patterns. The patterns formed words. "Remember." She remembered. God help her. She remembered everything. The weight of the baby in her arms, the cold splash of the river, the goddess's burning eyes. And she remembered the promise that she would pay for what she'd done. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Mama Folake?" It was Amara's timid voice. "Are you okay? I heard you crying." Had she been crying? Mama Falak touched her face and found it wet with tears. She opened the door to find Amara standing there in her worn nightgown, genuine concern in her eyes. Behind her, at the end of the hallway, stood Ayomide watching silently. "I'm fine," Mama Folak said roughly. "Go back to bed." But Amara didn't move. "Mama Folak, I know you don't like me very much. I know I remind you that I'm not really your daughter, but I want you to know I would never wish bad things for you. I pray for you every night." Something in Mama Falake's chest cracked. This child, this girl she'd starved and beaten and humiliated for years, was praying for her. The injustice of it all crashed over her like a wave. Here was Amara, innocent and forgiving, while Mama Falak drowned in her own bitterness and fear. "Why?" The word escaped before she could stop it. "Why would you pray for someone who treats you so badly?" Amara smiled sadly, looking far older than her 9 years. "Because Ayamide's grandmother told me something once. She visits me too sometimes. She said that hurt people, and that you must be carrying a very heavy hurt inside. So I pray that whatever makes you sad will go away." Mama Folak closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down to the floor. Both girls knew. Both of them had been visited by the goddess. And instead of seeking revenge, instead of telling Adebayo the truth, they were protecting her with their silence. The goddess's revenge was far more sophisticated than Mama Folake had imagined. She wasn't being destroyed. She was being forced to live with the consequences of her choices day after day, surrounded by the evidence of her cruelty and the inexplicable mercy of her victims. Outside her window, thunder rumbled, though the evening had been clear. Rain began to fall, and in its rhythm, Mama Falak swore she could hear laughter, ancient, patient, and terrifyingly kind. The goddess was enjoying this. What do you think will happen next? Will Mama Folake finally confess her sins, or will her secrets destroy her from within? Don't forget to like this video and share it with friends who love stories with unexpected twists. The rainy season came early that year, and with it, a sickness swept through Lagos. It started in the markets, spreading quickly through the crowded stalls and narrow pathways. People called it the wasting illness because victims would grow weaker and thinner each day, no matter how much they ate or rested. The hospitals filled quickly, and traditional healers worked around the clock, mixing herbs and offering prayers. Adebayo's business suffered as fewer customers ventured out. But that wasn't what worried Mama Falak. What terrified her was watching her eldest son, Tunde, grow pale and listless. Within a week, the strong 12-year-old who played football from dawn to dusk could barely lift his head from his pillow. "We need to take him to the hospital," Adebayo insisted, pacing their bedroom with worry etched across his face. "I've already taken him twice," Mama Folak said, her voice breaking with genuine fear. "They say they don't know what's wrong. The medicine doesn't work. He just keeps getting weaker." She sat by Tunde's bedside that night, holding his hot hand and whispering prayers she wasn't sure anyone was listening to. Her baby boy, her firstborn, was slipping away, and she was powerless to stop it. Bayo sat in the corner, unusually quiet, his eyes red from crying. A soft knock interrupted her prayers. Ayamide stood in the doorway, still in her school uniform, her face serious beyond her 5 years. "Get out," Mama Folek said immediately. "This is your fault, isn't it? You and your grandmother are punishing me through my son." Amai shook her head slowly. "That's not how it works. My grandmother doesn't punish innocent people for the sins of others. Tunde is sick because sickness exists in the world, not because of anything you did." "Then why are you here?" Mama Folake demanded, though her voice lacked its usual venom. She was too tired, too scared to maintain her anger. "Because I can help him," Ayamid said simply. She walked into the room and placed her small hand on Tunde's forehead. "But you have to let me." Mama Folake wanted to refuse, wanted to push the child away and scream that she didn't need help from the daughter of a river goddess. But Tunde moaned softly, his breathing shallow and labored, and desperation won over pride. "Please," she whispered, "please save my son." Ayamid closed her eyes and the temperature in the room dropped. Mama Falaki could see her breath misting in the air. Water began to beat on Tunde's forehead, but not from fever. This water was cool and clear, and it glowed with that familiar ethereal blue light. It spread across his skin like a gentle rain, seeping into his pores. Tunde's breathing eased. Color slowly returned to his cheeks. Within minutes, he opened his eyes and looked around, confused but clearly better. "Mama," he said weakly, "I'm thirsty." Mama Falaki sobbed with relief, crushing him in an embrace while Bayo rushed to get water. When she finally looked up, Aomide was swaying on her feet, exhausted. "What did you do?" Mama Folake asked. "The river cleanses," Aomide said, her voice small and tired. "My grandmother showed me how, but it takes a lot of energy." She sat down heavily on the floor, and for the first time, Mama Folake saw her not as a supernatural threat, but as a small child who had just done something incredibly difficult. "Why would you help him?" Mama Folake asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "Why would you save the son of the woman who tried to kill you?" Aomade looked at her with those ancient eyes. "Because he's innocent, and because my grandmother says that mercy is stronger than revenge. She says you have to learn that lesson yourself. She can't teach it to you." Over the next few days, Tunde recovered completely, baffling the doctors who had expected him to die. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood about the miracle recovery, and soon people were showing up at their door, begging Iomide to heal their sick relatives. Adebayo was overwhelmed and proud. "Our daughter is blessed," he proclaimed. "God has given her a gift." But Mama Falak watched from the shadows as Iomide laid hands on stranger after stranger, healing the young and old, the rich and poor. Each healing left the child more exhausted, and each time, Mama Falak felt the weight of her guilt grow heavier. One evening, after Iomide had collapsed from exhaustion after healing a dying infant, Mama Falak carried her to bed. As she tucked the blanket around the sleeping child, she noticed how small and vulnerable Aomide looked. Just a little girl who should be playing with dolls, not carrying the burden of a goddess's power. "I'm sorry," Mama Falake whispered, though she wasn't sure if Iomide could hear. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you." Iomide's eyes fluttered open. "Tell my father the truth," she said softly. "That's all my grandmother wants. The truth. Then maybe you can be free." "I can't," Mama Folek said, tears streaming down her face. "If I tell him, he'll hate me. He'll throw me out. My sons will be ashamed. I'll lose everything." "You've already lost everything that matters," Iomide said with a wisdom that was heartbreaking in one so young. "You've lost peace, lost joy, lost the ability to love without fear. What else is there to lose?" Mama Folek had no answer. She left the room and found Amara in the kitchen, washing dishes. The 9-year-old worked silently, efficiently, as she'd been trained to do. "Amara," Mama Folek said, and the girl flinched, expecting a blow or harsh words. "I need to tell you something." Amara turned, her eyes wide and wary. "I'm sorry," Mama Folek continued, the words feeling foreign in her mouth. "I'm sorry for how I've treated you all these years. You didn't deserve any of it. Your mother, Yatunda, she was a good woman, and you're just like her. And I've been terrible to you because I was jealous of that goodness." Amara stood frozen, dish soap dripping from her hands. Then inexplicably, she smiled, a genuine warm smile that lit up her whole face. "I forgive you, Mama Folek. I forgave you a long time ago. That night, Mama Falake dreamed of the river. But this time, instead of drowning in fear, she floated peacefully on the surface, staring up at stars that seemed close enough to touch. The goddess appeared beside her, no longer terrifying, but simply present. You're learning, Oshun said. Slowly, painfully, but you're learning. The question is, will you learn fast enough? Fast enough for what? Mama Folek asked. The goddess's form began to dissolve into mist. Fast enough to save yourself when the real test comes? Mama Folek woke with a gasp, the sheets soaked with water that smelled of river clay and rain. Across the room, Adebayo slept peacefully, unaware of his wife's turmoil. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the first light of dawn was breaking over Lagos. But Mama Falak knew this wasn't the end. The goddess had said it herself. The real test was still coming. And when it arrived, would she finally have the courage to choose truth over comfort, mercy over self-preservation? The answer, she feared, would come sooner than she was ready for. Have you ever kept a secret that ate away at you from the inside? What would you do in Mama Folek's position? Confess and lose everything, or continue living with the guilt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're watching from. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales. Share this with someone who needs to hear a story about redemption and consequences. The real test came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 6 years after Mama Folek had thrown the baby into the river. She woke to find Adebayo packing a bag, his movements quick and agitated. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting up in bed. "It's my sister in Ibadan," he said, not meeting her eyes. "She's had an accident, very serious. I need to go immediately and take care of the arrangements. I'll be gone for at least a week, maybe 2. Mama Falak's stomach tightened. "Take me with you. Take the children." "No," Adebayo said firmly. "The children have school, and someone needs to watch the shop. My manager's good, but I don't trust him completely with the money. You stay here. Take care of everything. I'll call you every day." Within an hour, he was gone, leaving Mama Falak alone with the 4 children. For the first day, everything seemed normal. She cooked meals, sent the children to school, managed the household. But on the second night, Bayo came home with a fever. "Not again," Mama Folak whispered, pressing her hand to his forehead. "Please, God, not again." But this time was different. The fever climbed rapidly and Bayo began speaking in delirium, thrashing in his bed. Mama Falak called for Ayomid, swallowing her pride. "Please," she begged the 6-year-old, "please help your brother like you helped Tunda." Ayomid came to Bayo's bedside and placed her hands on him, just as she had done before. She closed her eyes and Mama Falak waited for the blue glow, for the miraculous water that cleansed sickness. But nothing happened. Ayomid opened her eyes and they were filled with tears. "I can't," she whispered. "My grandmother says this is not a sickness I'm meant to heal. This is something else." "What do you mean something else?" Mama Folek's voice rose in panic. "He's sick. You healed Tunde. Why can't you heal Bayo?" "Because Bayo's sickness is connected to a debt that hasn't been paid," Ayomid said, her small voice shaking. "My grandmother says the river requires balance. A life for a life, truth for healing." The room spun around Mama Folek. "No, no, you're lying. Your grandmother is punishing me through my innocent son." "She's not punishing anyone," Ayomid insisted, tears now streaming down her face. "But there are laws older than humans, older than gods even. When you tried to take my life, you created an imbalance. Every healing I've done since then has been my grandmother's mercy, pushing against that imbalance. But now it's too much. The scales must be evened." "How?" Mama Falak grabbed Ayomid's shoulders. "Tell me how to even them." "Tell the truth," Ayomid said simply. "Tell Papa what you did. Tell him who I really am. Tell him about the night you threw his daughter into the river. The truth will break the curse." Mama Falaka released her and staggered backward. "If I tell him, he'll never forgive me. He'll throw me out. My sons will have nothing." "If you don't tell him, Bayo will die," Ayomid said bluntly. "Tonight, before the sun rises. Those are the only 2 choices my grandmother's giving you." Mama Folek looked at her son, writhing in fever on the bed. She thought about Tunda, healthy and strong, sleeping in the next room. She thought about Adebayo, who had given her a home, security, love. And she thought about the baby she had wrapped in cloth and thrown away like garbage. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why did this have to happen to me?" Amara, who had been standing silently in the doorway, finally spoke. "Because you made it happen, Mama Folek. Every choice has consequences. Aamide's grandmother didn't create this situation. You did." The 10-year-old walked into the room and took her stepmother's hand. "But it's not too late. The truth can be painful, but lies kill everything they touch. I learned that from watching you all these years." Mama Folak spent the next hour pacing the house, her mind racing through scenarios. She could run away, take Bayo to a hospital far from Lagos where Iamide's power couldn't reach. She could lie to Adebayo, make up some story that explained everything without implicating herself. She could. Bayo's scream cut through her thoughts. She ran to his room to find him convulsing, his skin burning hot. Tunde was crying, holding his brother's hand. Amara stood with her hands clasped in prayer, and Iamide sat in the corner, watching Mama Folake with eyes that held no judgment, only sadness. "Please," Mama Folake begged, "there must be another way." "There isn't," Iamide said. "My grandmother has been more patient with you than you deserved. She's given you 6 years to learn, to grow, to become someone capable of choosing right over easy. This is your final test." Mama Folake looked at Bayo, her baby, the child she had carried and nursed and loved with every fiber of her being. Then she looked at Ayomide, the child she had tried to murder, who now sat calmly waiting for Mama Folak to decide between truth and comfort, between her son's life and her own pride. It wasn't really a choice at all. "Get me a phone," Mama Folak said, her voice hollow. "I need to call my husband." Amara brought her the mobile phone with shaking hands. Mama Folak dialed Adebayo's number, her finger trembling so badly she had to try 3 times before getting it right. "Folak?" Adebayo answered on the second ring. "Is everything all right? It's past midnight." "No," Mama Folak said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Everything is not all right. Bayo is very sick, but that's not why I'm calling. I need to tell you something I should have told you 6 years ago." "What are you talking about?" Mama Falak took a deep breath. "The baby I told you died after birth. Our daughter. She didn't die. I killed her. Or I tried to. I took her to the river and threw her in because I didn't want another daughter taking inheritance from my sons." Silence on the other end. Long, terrible silence. "But she didn't die," Mama Folek continued, the words pouring out now like a dam had broken. "She was saved by the river goddess Oshun because your first wife Yetunde was blessed by the goddess years ago. The baby you found in the market 3 days later, Aomide, she's our biological daughter, the one I tried to kill. The goddess sent her back to punish me, to teach me, to force me to live with what I'd done." More silence. Then, "You're telling me this now? In the middle of the night? Folek, have you gone mad?" "I'm telling you because Bayo is dying," Mama Folek said, tears finally breaking through. "The goddess says she can't heal him unless I tell the truth. A life for a life, truth for healing. So here's the truth, Adebayo. Your wife is a monster who tried to murder your newborn daughter, and now she's begging you to forgive her so your son can live." She heard Adebayo's sharp intake of breath, heard something crash in the background. "Put Iomide on the phone," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. Mama Falake handed the phone to Iomide, who took it with her small hands. "Papa," Iomide said softly, "it's true, all of it. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Whatever Adebayo said made Iomide nod. "Yes, Papa. I can heal him now. Mama Folak spoke the truth." She handed the phone back. "I'm coming home," Adebayo said, his voice broken. "Tonight. I'm leaving right now. And when I get there, Folak, we will talk about what happens next." The line went dead. Aomide stood and walked to Bayo's bedside. This time when she placed her hands on him, the blue light came immediately, stronger than Mama Falake had ever seen it. The water flowed over Bayo's skin, and within moments his fever broke. He stopped thrashing and fell into a peaceful sleep. "It's done," Ayamid said, exhausted. "He'll be fine now." Mama Falak collapsed to her knees, sobbing, not with relief, but with the crushing weight of what she'd just done. She'd told the truth, saved her son, and destroyed her marriage all in one conversation. Everything she'd feared for 6 years was now coming to pass. But strangely, underneath the fear and grief, she felt something else, something she hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. The secrets that had chained her were finally broken. Whatever came next, divorce, shame, exile, at least it would be built on truth rather than lies. Amara knelt beside her and wrapped thin arms around her shoulders. "You did the right thing," the girl whispered. "I'm proud of you." Those words from the child she'd abused for years broke something final in Mama Falak's heart. She wept in Amara's embrace while Ayamide watched silently. And outside the rain began to fall, not threatening this time, but cleansing. What would you have done in Mama Falak's situation? Could you sacrifice everything you've built on lies for the truth? Let us know in the comments. If this story is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of confession and redemption. Drop a like if you're Team Truth. We're almost at the end of this incredible journey. Don't miss the conclusion. Adebayo arrived home at dawn, his eyes red from crying and driving through the night. He walked past Mama Falake without a word, went straight to Bayo's room, and sat by his sleeping son's bedside for an hour, just watching him breathe. Then he went to Ayomid's room. Mama Falak stood in the hallway, listening to the murmur of voices. She couldn't make out the words, but she heard Adebayo's voice crack with emotion several times. When he finally emerged, his face was streaked with tears. "Pack your things," he said to Mama Falak, his voice flat and emotionless. "You're leaving this house. Adebayo, please, don't." He held up his hand and she saw it was shaking. "Don't say my name. Don't try to explain. You tried to murder my daughter. My newborn baby. You threw her in a river like she was trash. And then you lied to me for 6 years while I mourned a child who was alive. There is nothing you can say that will make this okay." Tunde and Bayo appeared at their bedroom door, confusion and fear on their faces. "Papa, what's happening?" Tunde asked. Adebayo's expression softened slightly when he looked at his stepsons. "Come here, boys." They approached cautiously, and he pulled them both into an embrace. "What your mother did was very wrong. Very, very wrong. But you two are innocent in all this. You will always be welcome in my home. You are my sons no matter what." "Papa, I don't understand," Bayo said, his voice still weak from his illness. "What did Mama do?" "Ask her," Adebayo said coldly, looking at Mama Falak. "Let her explain to you why she has to leave." Mama Falaki looked at her sons, her precious boys who she'd done everything to protect, who she'd committed murder for, and saw their innocent, confused faces. How could she explain that their mother was a monster? "I did something terrible," she began, her voice breaking. "When Ayomide was born, I was afraid. Afraid that your father's wealth would be divided too many ways, afraid you wouldn't have enough. So I took the baby and tried to get rid of her. I took her to the river, and you killed her?" Tunda's voice was barely a whisper, his face pale with shock. "I tried to," Mama Folek admitted. "But the river goddess saved her and brought her back. Everything I did because I was trying to protect you both. But I was wrong. I was so wrong, and I'm sorry." Bayo started crying. "You tried to kill Aomide, but she saved me. She saved both of us. If she hadn't healed me last night, I would have died." The irony of it wasn't lost on anyone. The child Mama Folek had tried to murder had saved both her sons, had saved the very people Mama Folek claimed she was protecting when she committed her crime. "I know," Mama Folek whispered. "I know, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand how I became someone capable of that." Tunde turned to his father. "Papa, I know what she did was terrible, but please don't make her leave. She's still our mother. We need her." Adebayo's face was torn with conflict. "Tunda, you don't understand." "I do understand," Tunda said, his 12-year-old voice surprisingly firm. "I understand that she did something evil, But I also understand that Iamide forgave her, and Amara forgave her, and even the river goddess gave her chances to make things right. If they can forgive her, can't you? It's different, Adebayo said roughly. They didn't marry her. They didn't trust her. They didn't build a life with her based on lies. No, Papa. Ayamide's small voice came from behind them. She stood in her doorway, looking tiny in her nightgown. You built a life with her based on love. The lies came after, from fear, but the love was real. I've seen inside her heart. My grandmother showed me. Mama Folek loves you very much. She just let her fear become bigger than her love. Adebayo stared at his youngest daughter, the child who should hate Mama Folek most of all, and his resolve wavered. How can you defend her? He asked Ayomide. After what she did to you. Ayomide walked over and took her father's hand. Because my grandmother taught me that people are not just their worst moments. Mama Folek tried to kill me, yes, but for the past 6 years she's been learning to be better. She apologized to Amara. She takes care of us. She was willing to confess everything to save Bio, even though she knew it would cost her everything. That takes courage. Courage? Adebayo's laugh was bitter. She only confessed because she had no choice. Everyone always has a choice, Papa, Ayamide said wisely. She could have let Bio die and kept her secret, but she didn't. She chose truth. She chose mercy over self-preservation. That's what my grandmother was waiting for all along. As if summoned by the mention of her name, the air in the hallway grew cold and damp. Water began seeping through the walls, not threatening, but present. Everyone fell silent as the moisture gathered into a shape, the river goddess Oshun materializing in the hallway of their home for the first time. She was even more beautiful than Mama Folak remembered, and more terrible. Her presence filled the space with power that made everyone want to kneel. Adebayo, the goddess said, her voice like wind over water. I have watched your family for many years. I watched your first wife save a drowning child and earn my blessing. I watched your daughter Amara grow strong despite cruelty. I watched Ayomide use her gifts to heal the sick. And I watched Falak struggle with the darkness in her own heart. Adebayo found his voice, though it shook. Then you know what she did. You know she tried to kill my daughter. I do, Oshun confirmed. And I have been teaching her the cost of that choice ever since. But teaching is not the same as punishment, and punishment is not the same as damnation. Folek has learned, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. She has faced her sin and spoken the truth despite the cost. That is true repentance. So I'm just supposed to forgive her? Adebayo's voice cracked. Pretend it never happened? No, the goddess said firmly. You are supposed to decide whether the woman she is now is worth more than the woman she was then. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to build something new from the ruins of what was broken. The goddess turned to Mama Falak, who could barely stand under the weight of that divine gaze. You have passed my test, Folak, but my forgiveness is not the one that matters most. You must live with what you've done. You must earn back the trust you destroyed, and you must prove every single day for the rest of your life that you meant what you said when you chose truth over comfort. I will, Mama Folak whispered. I swear I will. Oshun nodded. Then my work here is complete. The debt is paid. The balance is restored. She looked at Ayomide with such love that it made everyone's heart ache. Take care of them, little one. All of them, even the one who wronged you. That is the burden and blessing of being my granddaughter. The goddess dissolved into mist, and the water evaporated, leaving only the faint scent of river clay and rain. In the silence that followed, Adebayo sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Mama Falak stood apart, not daring to approach. The children clustered together, watching their parents with worried eyes. Finally, Amara stepped forward. Papa, she said softly, I lost my mother when I was born. I don't want to lose another one, even if she wasn't always kind to me. People can change. I've seen it happen. Adebayo looked up at his eldest daughter, Yetunde's daughter who carried her mother's gentle spirit, and saw the forgiveness in her eyes. Then he looked at Ayomide, who nodded encouragingly. Then at his stepsons who clung to each other but whose eyes pleaded for their family to stay together. I can't just forget, he said finally, looking at Mama Folek. I can't pretend this didn't happen. I don't want you to forget, Mama Folek said. I want to earn my way back into your trust, however long it takes, even if it takes the rest of my life. Adebayo was silent for a long moment. Then he said, you'll sleep in the guest room. You'll attend counseling. I don't care if we have to find a pastor, a therapist, or both. You'll apologize properly to Amara and Iomide every single day. And if I ever see you treat any of these children with anything less than complete love and respect, you will leave this house permanently. Do you understand? Relief flooded through Mama Folek so powerfully she nearly collapsed. Yes, yes, I understand. Thank you, Adebayo. Thank you. He didn't smile, didn't embrace her, just nodded stiffly. But it was a beginning, a fragile, tentative beginning built on ruins and watered with tears, but a beginning nonetheless. That night, as Mama Folek lay in the guest room staring at the ceiling, she heard her door creak open. Iomide slipped inside, climbed onto the bed, and curled up next to her. My grandmother says you're going to be okay, Iomide whispered. She says you finally understand that love means making hard choices. Mama Falak wrapped her arms around the child she'd once tried to murder and felt tears slip down her face. I'm so sorry, Iomide. I'm so sorry. I know, Mama, Iomide said. And the word, Mama, spoken freely and without malice, broke Mama Falaki's heart and healed it all at once. Outside, the rain fell gently, washing away the old and making space for the new. The river goddess's work was done. The rest was up to them. What an incredible journey. Are you team forgiveness or team justice? Drop your thoughts in the comments. One more chapter to go. Don't miss the powerful conclusion. Like and share this video if it touched your heart. 2 years passed, and the household on their street in Surulere became known throughout Lagos for something unexpected. Not for scandal or shame, but for healing. Both kinds of healing. Iomide, now 8 years old, had become something of a legend. People traveled from across Nigeria and even neighboring countries to see the child blessed by the river goddess. But Adebayo was careful to protect his daughter. She only healed on certain days and never for money, though grateful families often left gifts that Adebayo donated to orphanages and hospitals. The other healing, the quieter, slower kind, was happening inside the walls of their home. Mama Falak kept every promise she'd made that terrible dawn 2 years ago. She attended counseling sessions with Pastor Adeyemi, a wise old man who'd heard countless confessions, but still looked shocked when she told him her story. She went to therapy with Dr. Okonkwo, who helped her understand the fear and insecurity that had twisted her love into something monstrous. But the hardest work happened at home. Every morning, Mama Folek woke before everyone else and prepared breakfast. Real breakfast, with equal portions for all the children. She braided Iomide's hair with gentle fingers, helped Amara with her homework, and cheered just as loudly for her stepsons at their football matches as she did for Adebayo's biological daughters at their school performances. Amara, now 12, had blossomed, no longer the scared, silent child who flinched at every sound. She laughed freely and excelled in her studies. She wanted to be a doctor. She'd announced one evening at dinner so she could heal people the way Iomide did, but with medicine instead of magic. Both are important, Iomide had said seriously. Grandmother says the world needs people who heal bodies and people who heal hearts. Tundi and Bayo, now 14 and 12, had struggled at first with what their mother had done. But children are resilient, and they'd watch Mama Folake work tirelessly to make amends. Slowly, their anger had transformed into cautious forgiveness, then into acceptance, and finally into a deeper, more mature love than they'd had before. Because now they loved her fully aware of her flaws, not in ignorance of them. As for Adebayo and Mama Folaka, their relationship had fundamentally changed. He no longer called her by pet names or held her hand in public, but he was there. He came home every evening. He sat with her during counseling sessions. And sometimes, late at night, she would hear him crying in his room, grieving the trust that had been broken, the innocence that had been lost. She never interrupted those moments. She simply waited, knowing that some wounds take years to heal, and that was okay. She deserved his pain. She could bear it. On the second anniversary of her confession, Mama Folake woke to find Adebayo sitting on the edge of her bed in the guest room. She sat up quickly, alarmed. "Is everything all right?" she asked. He looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he said, "I've been thinking about something Pastor Adiemi said last week. He said that forgiveness isn't a feeling. It's a decision you make every day, sometimes multiple times a day, until one day you realize you're not making the decision anymore. It's just become who you are." Mama Falaka held her breath, not daring to hope. "I don't know if I'll ever forget what you did," Adebayo continued, "and I don't know if things will ever be exactly like they were before. But I've decided something. I've decided that I want to try to move forward instead of just existing in this frozen space between anger and forgiveness." "What does that mean?" Mama Falak asked softly. "It means you can move back into our room," Adebayo said. "It means I'm going to try to trust you again, even though it scares me. It means I'm choosing to believe that people can change because I've watched you change. Every single day for 2 years, I've watched you fight to be better. And I think Yetunde would want me to choose mercy. She was always better at that than me." Tears streamed down Mama Folek's face. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." "No," Adebayo agreed. "You don't. But none of us deserve the grace we're given. The goddess could have destroyed you that night at the river, but she didn't. She gave you a chance to learn, to grow. Who am I to be less merciful than a goddess?" He stood and walked to the door, then paused. "Pack your things. Move them back this weekend. But Folek," his voice hardened slightly, "if you ever do anything to harm any of our children again, goddess or no goddess, I will make sure you never see them again. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear," Mama Falak whispered. "Thank you, Adebayo. Thank you for giving me another chance." That Sunday, the whole family helped Mama Folake move her belongings back into the master bedroom. It felt like a celebration, like something precious that had been lost was finally being restored. That evening, Ayamite asked if they could all go to the river, the same river where she'd been thrown away 8 years ago. Adebayo was hesitant, but Mama Falak surprised everyone by agreeing immediately. "I need to face it," she said quietly. "I need to go back to where it all began." They walked together as the sun was setting, casting golden light across the water. The river looked peaceful, beautiful even, not like the scene of attempted murder, but like a place of power and possibility. Ayamide walked to the water's edge and knelt down, dipping her hands in. The water began to glow softly, and everyone held their breath as the river goddess materialized once more. But this time, she appeared smaller, less imposing, almost human-sized. "Grandmother," Ayamide said happily, embracing the goddess like any child might hug their grandmother. Oshun smiled and stroked Ayomide's hair, then looked at the assembled family. Her gaze settled on Mama Falake. "You've done well," the goddess said simply. "Better than I expected, if I'm honest. The woman standing before me now is not the same woman who stood on this bank 8 years ago." "No," Mama Folak agreed. "She's not. That woman was ruled by fear. I'm trying to be someone ruled by love instead." "It's not easy," Oshun observed. "Love is much harder than fear. Fear makes you small, makes your world small. Love requires you to be brave, to be vulnerable, to risk being hurt. You're doing the harder thing now." "I have good teacher," Mama Folek said, looking at her family. "All of them." Oshun nodded approvingly. Then she turned to Adebayo. "You've been a good father. To all your children, biological and chosen. Yetunde would be proud of you." Adebayo's eyes filled with tears. "I miss her every day." "She knows," Oshun said gently. "And she's been watching over you all. She was the one who whispered in your heart to forgive, you know. That mercy you've shown, that's her gift to you, from beyond death." The goddess began to fade, but before she disappeared completely, she said one last thing. "Remember this, all of you. Every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Every person carries wounds you cannot see. Choose kindness. Choose mercy. Choose to believe that people can change, because they can. I've seen it happen right here, in this family. You are proof that love is stronger than fear, that truth is more powerful than lies, and that redemption is always possible for those brave enough to seek it. She vanished, leaving behind only the gentle lapping of water against the shore. They stood together in silence for a while, the family that had been broken and rebuilt, stronger in the broken places. Then Amara said, "I'm hungry. Can we get suya on the way home?" Everyone laughed, the tension breaking like a wave against rocks. They walked home together as the stars began to appear, talking and laughing, a family not defined by their worst moments, but by their choice to heal from them. That night after the children were asleep, Mama Falak sat on the veranda with Adebayo, watching the moon rise over Lagos. "Do you think we'll be okay?" she asked quietly. Adebayo was silent for a moment, then reached over and took her hand, the first time he'd done so in 2 years. "I think we're already okay," he said. "Not perfect, not the same as before, but okay in a new way. A way that's built on truth instead of pretense." Mama Falaki squeezed his hand, grateful beyond words. Inside the house, Aamide lay in her bed, feeling her grandmother's presence like a warm current in the water of sleep. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. "You're welcome, little one," came the reply, though whether she heard it with her ears or her heart, she couldn't say. "Thank you for teaching them what I could not, that the strongest magic is not in the power to harm or even to heal, but in the courage to forgive." And in the river miles away, the waters flowed peacefully on, carrying with them the story of a woman who almost destroyed everything she loved, and the family that chose mercy over vengeance, healing over hatred, and love over fear. Because in the end, that's what the river goddess had been teaching them all along. The most powerful force in the universe isn't magic or justice or even truth. It's love. Imperfect, struggling, hard-won love that chooses to see people not as their worst actions, but as their best possibilities. And that, more than any miracle, is what transforms the world. One heart, one choice, one act of mercy at a time. What did you think of Mama Folek's journey from villain to someone seeking redemption? Could you forgive someone who did what she did? This story shows us that people can change when they face the truth and do the hard work of making amends. Drop your final thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about forgiveness and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful African folktales with modern twists. Share this story with someone who needs to hear about the transformative power of truth, mercy, and love. What story should we tell next? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves a chance at redemption, and love is always stronger than fear. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next gripping tale.